various chronologies and the Slavic calendar. Now we, and most of the world, live according to the Gregorian calendar. But there are others: Chinese, Hebrew, Mayan calendar, Babylonian, Egyptian and many other already forgotten calendars, including the Slavic calendar. Before the reign of Peter the Great, the Slavic peoples used their own calendar. One of the first decrees of Peter the Great was the decree on the introduction of the Julian calendar and the postponement of the new year from September to January. The decree is dated 7208. But not from the birth of Christ, of course, but from the conclusion of the peace in the Star Temple. This phrase should be understood as the conclusion of peace after the hardest war between the Slavic Aryan Empire and the ancient army of China. The Star Temple is not a temple on the stars, but the year in which the conclusion of peace took place was simply called so. Each year in the Slavic calendar had its own name. And so, by the way, the symbol of this victory was a rider on a horse piercing a dragon with a spear. After some modifications, today this rider is known as George the Victorious, depicted on the coat of arms of Moscow. But let's return to the Slavic calendar. It is now 7,531 years since the conclusion of the peace in the Star Temple. Just think about it. Almost 5.5 thousand years before the introduction of the Julian calendar, which later changed to the current Gregorian calendar, the Slavs came up with their own, very accurate and logical chronology. And according to the chronology, the Slavic Aryan calendar is the most ancient calendar. However, before the chronology from the day of the conclusion of the peace in the Star Temple, the Slavs had a different chronology, from the Great Cold. This is documented in the ancient Slavic Aryan Vedas, written in runes on golden tablets. Their translation into modern Russian was first published in 1944. Now, according to this chronology, it is 13,031 year. This chronology is connected with the fall of fragments of the moon Fata on Midgard the Earth. As a result, the tilt of the Earth's axis changed, continents split, a giant wave bypassed the Earth 3 times, increased volcanic activity led to atmospheric pollution, which was one of the reasons for the Great Cold that lasted for several centuries. Hence, by the way, the word fatality, from the name of the moon, Fata. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from the third arrival of Perun's Vaitmana. According to legend, people lived in caves, and 40,000 years ago they suddenly began to build such megacities, such structures that modern technologies are not able to repeat. According to this chronology, it is now 40027 year. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from the creation of the Great Kolo Racenia. Kolo is a circle, that is, we are talking about the unification of Slavic Aryan clans for cohabitation. There were several stages of settlement of Midgard Earth. first in Daria, then during the Great Issa there was a migration from the land of Aurea, Mars, so some Slavic tribes called themselves children of Aurea. There were immigrants from Ingrid Earth, and this is the ancestral home of Tartha Dazbog, so there were grandchildren of Dazbog, someone from other lands. In general, there were several settlements and settled in different places, but it's all one race, white people, and settlement is the land on which the race settled. Almost 45,000 years ago, they sent representatives, senior families who created a great circle, that is, interchange and so on, to live and create together. According to this chronology, it is now 44,567 year. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from the foundation of Iskard of Uriah, that is, the city of the gods on the river Uri, the quietest, now Irdish. But it was founded not at the autumnal equinox, but a little earlier, in the month of Talat, the 9th day. Now, according to this chronology, there are 106,801 year. The Great Migration from Daria. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from the Great Migration from Daria. Daria is a continent at the North Pole of Midgard-Earth where our ancestors lived for many millennia. Daria sank as a result of the destruction of the moon Lelia, which had 50 seas. But our ancestors managed to relocate. They were warned about the approaching catastrophe by a priest named Spaz, who during the service saw events in the heavens that the moon Lelia would be destroyed, its fragments and waters would spill over Midgard-Earth and the wave would overwhelm Daria. People crossed the isthmus between the eastern and western seas, now the Ural Mountains, to the area of Burayan Island, the West Siberian upland. Now, according to this chronology, it is 111,829 year. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from 3 satellites, the moons of the Earth. In ancient times, the Midgard-Earth system first had 2 moons, Lelia and the moon, then before the importation of black people there were 3 moons, now there is only 1 moon. The memory of the 3 moons has been preserved in the legends only of India and Russia. 3 moons of Midgard-Earth. Lelia is the closest satellite to Midgard-Earth, with a rotation period of 7 days. Ancient legends say that there were 50 seas on Lelia, that is, it is not just a cold stone, but it had its own atmosphere. 111,000 years ago, the forces of darkness gathered on Lelia to attack Midgard-Earth and capture it. Dazbog had to destroy Lelia with 1 blow. The Elder and Younger Edda, Vishnu Purana, Mahabharata and Santi Vedas of Puran write about this. They tell us about the destruction of Leli and the first flood on Midgard-Earth. Moon is the largest and farthest satellite from Midgard-Earth, with an orbital period of 29.5. Fata. The circulation period is 13 days. Fata was dragged by our ancestors from the land of Dai. In Greek myths, Fata is called a Phaeton. The satellite Fata was destroyed 13,000 years ago. A large fragment of Fata hit the Pacific Ocean, and a giant wave circled the Earth 3 times along the equator. It is believed that Atlantis died at this time. At that time, many people died, so the number 13 became kind of scary, and the name Fata gave a new phrase, fatality, as an inevitability, something predetermined. According to this chronology, it is now 143,013 year. The War for Dea. Prior to that, the chronology was conducted from Issa Dea, the War for Dea. Issa is a war between the forces of light and darkness. It takes place not only in the world of reality, but also in the multidimensional worlds of Slavi and Pravi. That is, Issa Dea is the beginning of the war for the land of Dea. Then the forces of light dragged Fata, in Greek Phaeton, to Midgard-Earth, and there was still one more satellite, the Lutheus, who was captured by dark forces and tried to destroy Dea. But as the legends say, the priests used the power of certain crystals and Dea passed into the other world, that is, another world, and behind her the spatial structure slammed shut, and with this weapon the Lutheus was torn into many parts, an asteroid belt turned out. According to this chronology, it is now 153,389 year. Terra. This chronology is associated with the first visit to Midgard-Earth by the goddess Terra. She brought with her the seeds of sacred trees, and in addition to the flora that was on Midgard-Earth, she also planted forests. Therefore, Terra is still considered the patroness of trees that give strength. According to this chronology, it is now 165,053 year. Thule. Daria was divided by 4 rivers, and there were 4 provinces: Spaga, Hera, Ray, Thule. There was also the city of Thule, the city of craftsmen. They supplied everyone with the necessary tools, mechanisms and devices. As the legends say, tools were made that could change the surrounding world without harming nature, such as magic crystals and the like. By the way, that's why the mystical order in Germany was called Thule, as a sign of the prototype of the splendor that was in northern Daria. According to this chronology, it is now 185,789 year. Spaga. Spaga is the heavenly way, that is, this chronology comes from the time when new settlers arrived on Midgard Earth. According to this chronology, it is now 211,709 year. Hera. This is another wave of migration. Arrival to Midgard, the land of the Hylians, from the constellation Orion. According to this chronology, it is now 273,917 year. Arrival from Dara. The arrival of the Darians by Vaitmana from the star system of Ursa Minor. According to this chronology, it is now 460,541 year. 3 suns. This rare phenomenon was recorded by our ancestors more than 600,000 years ago, when, as a result of rotation around the center of our galaxy, our solar system came closer to 2 other star systems. That is, in addition to the Yarila sun, 2 more luminaries of silver and green color could be observed in the sky. According to this chronology, it is now 604,397 year. About months. Our ancestors allocated only 3 seasons: autumn, autumn, in Old Slavonic means, under the shadow of the atmosphere, winter and spring. Each season lasted 3 months, and the year was 9 months. Each month had a very logical name for those times. By the way, months were also sometimes called 40 or 40th. The year began on September 22 on the day of the autumnal equinox. It was the 2nd autumn month. 1. Ramat is the 40th of the divine beginning, autumn. 2. Alet is the 40th of new gifts, they collected the whole harvest, autumn. 3. Balat is the 40th of white shine and peace of the world, winter. 4. Galat is the 40th of blizzard and cold, winter. 5. Dalat is the 40th of the awakening of nature, winter. 6. Allah, 40th of sowing and naming, spring. Meant waiting. And even now, to fill the pause, waiting, we sometimes say Ah. 7. Walat is the 40th of the winds, spring. 8. Halat is the 40th of receiving the gifts of nature, spring. This month they received the first harvest. 9. Talat, the 40th of completion, autumn. Tai is the peak, that is, the end of summer. Hence, by the way, the word Taiga is the end of the way. The months were divided into odd, in which there were 41 days, and even, in which there were 40 days. Thus, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th and 9th months had 41 days each, and the 2nd, 4th, 6th and 8th lasted 40 days. In total, 365 days. But since the year actually consists of 365.25 days, the Slavs, yes, they were aware of this. Every 16th year was a sacred year and there were 369 days in it, that is, each month lasted 41 days. For 16 years, 4 additional days just ran. Multiply 0.25 by 16 equals 4, and the Slavs took them into consideration. The Slavic calendar, unlike the Julian calendar, was very accurate. By 1582, the Julian calendar had run away for 10 years, and by now for all 13 years. And why? Because they were based on the decimal system, they counted for centuries. The Slavs also had a hexadecimal number system, and the calendar was based on it. By the way, for tens of thousands of years, only this calendar has not lagged behind and has not hurried a single day. Slavic calendar. It was called the shield of the numerical god, or the Swarov's circle. It contains a lot of information, and it is much more complicated than a modern calendar. This 16-year period was called a circle. And passing through 9 elements, the circle of life was completed. Multiply 16 by 9 equals 144 years. That is, the Slavic period is 144 years, and the current one is 100 years. Now we live according to the Gregorian calendar, and we can have 28, 29, 30 or 31 days in a month. That is, each month has its own sign. The Slavs had everything much more convenient and simpler. There are only two tables: even months, 40 days, and odd months, 41 days. At the same time, if year began on Monday, then all odd-numbered months began on Monday, and even-numbered ones on the sixth day, Saturday. By the way, the Slavs had 9 days in a week, not 7. They clearly knew that there were 8 planets plus the moon in the solar system, not 6 planets plus the moon. And in the Swarov's circle, every year began on a certain day. Therefore, it was easy to calculate what day of the week it was hundreds and thousands of years ago. Days of the week. The Slavs had 9 days in each week. That is, despite the fact that their month lasted 40 or 41 days, the number of weeks was, as it is now, about 4.5. It is curious that in 2 months, 40 plus 41 days, there were 81 days, that is, 9 full weeks. Thus, the Slavs could quickly and accurately calculate what day of the week it was many years ago. The days of the week were called much more logically by our ancestors than they are now. Day 1 is Monday, Pondelnik in Russian, that is the day after a week, Nedalya. A week, Nedalya is the 9th day, which means no cases or no deal. If you quickly try to say no deal many times, you obtain Nedalya. The word po, for example, in Lithuanian means after, and the Russian word Pondelnik means the day after no deal day. Day 2 is Tuesday, Vtornik in Russian, from the word Vtoroy, second. Day 3, a 3-day, Tritnik in Russian, from the word 3. Wednesday, Shreda in Russian, appeared in the 7-day week, from the word Seredina, middle, because Wednesday is the middle of the working week. Day 4, Chetverik, later, Chetverg, Thursday in Russian, from the word Chetiir, 4. Day 5 is Friday, Piatnitsa, from the word Piat, 5. Day 6 is 6, Shtitsa, and again everything is logical, from the word chest, 6 in Russian, there was no Saturday, Soda. Day 7 is the 7th day, Sedmitsa, from the word sem, 7. Day 8 is the Osmitsa from the word Semli, that is, the axis of the earth. Day 9 is a Nedalya, week, that mean is netel, no deal, no cases, no business. Work and rest. It is interesting how the week was arranged in terms of work and rest. We might need to take a closer look at this system today. The first and second days of the week were always working days. The third day is a day of rest. Plus, the Tritinik was a fasting day. It's logical, if you don't work, you spend less energy, you don't need to eat a lot. The fourth day was working. Friday was the middle of the 9-day week. It was also a working day, but hard work was not encouraged. 6 was a day of rest. On the 7th day, they usually arranged a break from daily household chores, but the day was a working day. In Osmitsa, they tried to finish all the things they had started during the week. On the 9th day, week, they rested, walked, arranged weddings and feasts, went to visit. If we translate it into percentages, then now we rest 5% less. Now we rest 28.5% of the week, and before they rested 33% of the week. But more important, in my opinion, is something else. People didn't overwork before. They rested a day or two later. If there was such a schedule now, there would probably be fewer depressions and people would not suffer from chronic fatigue. Despite the fact that the week became 7 days, the chronology was conducted for a long time from the conclusion of the peace in the Star Temple. It was only by the decree of Peter the Great that Russia finally switched to the Julian calendar, later the Gregorian calendar, with the chronology from the birth of Christ. The new year began to be celebrated on the 1st of January, and not on September 22, as before, on the day of the autumnal equinox. I think it would not be superfluous to pay attention to the fact that despite the adoption of Christianity and the Julian calendar introduced later, many things are still connected with the Slavs with that ancient calendar. For example, the dead are commemorated on the 9th and 40th days, that is, at the end of the week and at the end of the month. And that's it all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.